Danica Patrick rose to prominence as one of the most recognizable figures the sport of racing had ever seen. She became a symbol of possibility in a world that had rarely made room for women at the highest levels. Yet by 2017, the momentum that once defined her career had faded. Results slipped further down the leaderboard. Relationships within her team fractured. And in the final moments of her professional journey, crashes and mechanical failures brought everything to a sudden, unresolved end. To some, she would always be remembered as a trailblazer who changed the sport forever. To others, she was a marketing phenomenon whose success never quite matched the spotlight. The reality lived in the space between those extremes, hidden beneath 312 Cup Series starts, relentless scrutiny, and a pressure few ever acknowledged. As her career unraveled, questions followed. What forces were working behind closed doors as everything fell apart? And why did a driver who had redefined racing step away feeling exhausted, unsettled, and worn by the weight of it all? Her story begins far from the roar of packed grandstands in Beloit, Wisconsin, where Danica Sue Patrick was born on March 25, 1982. From the very beginning, the sound of engines was part of her environment. Racing was not a hobby in her household. It was a way of life. Her father, T.J. Patrick Jr., competed in both car racing and motocross, while her mother, Beverly, worked as a mechanic and took part in snowmobile competitions. Their garage functioned as both workspace and classroom, a place where tools were always within reach and lessons came coated in grease and gasoline. Long before she understood the scale of professional motorsports, Danica learned how machines behaved, how speed felt, and how discipline shaped performance. Even when her parents later ran a coffee shop and a glass company to support the family, racing remained central to their identity. That steady rhythm of competition and preparation became the soundtrack of her childhood, slowly embedding itself into who she was. She spent much of her youth just across the Wisconsin border in Roscoe, Illinois, growing up with a rich blend of Norwegian, Irish, French-Canadian, Italian, and Native American heritage. That mix gave her a sense of depth and perspective that extended beyond her small-town surroundings. Her younger sister, Brooke, shared her competitive energy, and together they transformed their backyard into an improvised snowmobile course. Their parents joined in, turning casual family time into spirited races that sharpened instincts and reflexes. What began as play quietly became preparation. Those moments taught Danica how to feel a machine beneath her, how to react instinctively rather than hesitating, and how competition could be both joyful and demanding. Inside the house, conversations about engines, race strategies, and weekend competitions were constant. That environment nurtured curiosity and focus, pushing her to learn rather than simply watch. As she grew older, the warmth of her family and the diversity of her background helped her connect easily with people far beyond her hometown. At the age of 10, her parents built her first go-kart using a lawnmower engine. It was simple, unpolished, and far from professional, but it was enough. That kart became the spark that set everything in motion. By the mid-1990s, she was competing in the World Karting Association Grand National Championship, where she captured her class title 3 times. Those victories came not from superior equipment, but from persistence. She practiced in cold conditions that left her hands aching, refusing to stop when discomfort set in. Each race expanded her reputation in local racing circles and reinforced the idea that she possessed something rare. Even without major sponsors or top-tier resources, she was proving she could compete and win. By her early teens, there was no doubt about what drove her. Racing wasn't just an interest, it was where she felt most alive. That realization led to a defining decision. In 1998, at just 16 years old, she left high school during her junior year, earned her GED, and moved alone to Milton Keynes, England. It was a dramatic break from everything familiar, driven by a singular goal to pursue a future in professional racing. With support from Jackie Stewart, doors began to open. She entered spaces populated by influential figures in Formula racing and crossed paths with drivers who would later become Formula One stars, including Jenson Button. For a teenager raised around snowmobiles and modest karting tracks, the leap was enormous. Life in England demanded constant adjustment. She navigated unfamiliar tracks, different racing philosophies, and cultural shifts, all while living far from her family. Each challenge tested her resilience and sharpened her competitive edge. That resilience was pushed even further when rumors surfaced about her living an extravagant lifestyle, claims that led to the sudden loss of sponsor support. At the time, she was living in an apartment backed by Ford, and whether the stories were accurate or not, the damage was immediate. For an entire year, her father covered her racing expenses out of his own pocket, placing immense strain on a working-class family. The pressure weighed heavily on everyone involved, but it also revealed the depth of their commitment. Danica continued to race with determination, learning firsthand how fragile a career could become when financial support disappeared. Eventually, sponsorship returned, but the lesson stayed with her. Her European racing career formally began in the 1998 Formula Vauxhall Winter Series. At 16, she entered a field dominated by male drivers with greater funding and more experience. The following year, she competed in the British Formula Vauxhall Championship, finishing 9th overall with 31 points. Against seasoned competitors equipped with superior machinery, the result marked a significant achievement. Each race added toughness and perspective. In 2000, she joined Andy Welch Racing in the British Formula Ford Championship, contesting 14 races and finishing third in the overall standings. At the prestigious Formula Ford Festival at Brands Hatch, she placed second, earning the best result by an American driver since 1972. Her name began circulating through paddocks and garages, drawing attention not for novelty, but for performance. The 2001 season proved far more difficult. Struggling with uncompetitive equipment and limited support, she finished 25th in the British Formula Ford Championship with just 10 points. The frustration was deep, but it forced reflection. Rather than retreat, she set her sights higher and made the case to return to the United States. In 2002, she joined Team Rahal in the Barber Dodge Pro Series, competing in 5 events and finishing 13th with 35 points. The move marked a pivotal shift, placing her in better environments with clearer pathways forward. Momentum continued to build. In 2003, she raced in the American Le Mans Series GTS class, finishing 23rd overall with ProDrive Racing. At the same time, she competed in the Toyota Atlantic Championship, placing 6th with 109 points across 12 races. At just 21 years old, she demonstrated an ability to transition seamlessly between sports cars and open-wheel racing. That adaptability became one of her defining strengths, an understanding of machinery that transcended categories. By 2004, she reached another high point in the Toyota Atlantic Championship. She finished third overall with 269 points, earning a pole position and setting the fastest lap during the season. Her performance secured her a seat with Rahal Letterman Racing in IndyCar. Despite whispers of favoritism and skepticism surrounding her rise, she answered with consistency and control, proving she belonged at that level. Her path from karting to Europe and then into top-tier American open-wheel racing reflected a refusal to retreat, regardless of how steep the climb became. Then came 2005, a year that delivered both recognition and risk. Driving the number 16 car for Rahal Letterman Racing, she competed in 17 races and finished the season 12th overall with 325 points. But during a race in Japan, exposure to toxic exhaust fumes left her severely ill. She suffered respiratory complications serious enough to require hospitalization, forcing her to miss the following race. It was a reminder that even as her profile grew, the physical toll of racing remained unforgiving, and the margin between progress and vulnerability was always thin. She had already drawn national attention by qualifying for the Indianapolis 500 as the first woman to do so in the modern era. But the illness she suffered that season peeled back the polished surface of the sport. It exposed a reality rarely seen by fans. The danger did not always arrive in the form of wrecks or visible impacts. Sometimes it came silently, through fumes, fatigue, and forces drivers could not control. Racing, for all its glamour, carried risks that stayed hidden until they demanded a price. That same year, the Indianapolis 500 became the stage where everything changed. Danica Patrick led the race twice, first from lap 56 to 74, then again from lap 172 to 185, spending 19 laps at the front of the most demanding race in American motorsports. She finished fourth, the highest result ever achieved by a woman, and earned Rookie of the Year honors. What made the performance even more remarkable was how close it came to ending before it truly began. On the opening lap, she spun, narrowly avoiding a crash that would have erased her race in seconds. Instead, she gathered the car, fought through the disorder of the field, and steadily worked her way back into contention. Her qualifying speed reached 227.04 miles per hour, and for many watching, something fundamental shifted. This was no longer about symbolic milestones. She was racing for victory, and the sport felt different because of it. In 2006, she competed in 13 IndyCar races and finished ninth in the standings with 302 points. That year also expanded her resume beyond open-wheel racing. She entered the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona, sharing a Daytona prototype with Rusty Wallace, Alan McNish, and Jan Lammers. The team showed promise and ran competitively until mechanical issues ended their run. Even in disappointment, Patrick demonstrated once again that she could adapt quickly, stepping into unfamiliar machinery and holding her own. Setbacks did not slow her progress. They simply became part of the pattern she learned to navigate. Her move to Andretti Green Racing in 2007 marked another leap forward. Across 17 races, she finished 7th in the championship with 424 points and came closer than ever to her first victory. At the Detroit Indy Grand Prix, she led 9 laps and finished second, becoming the first woman to do so in IndyCar competition. The race was chaotic, filled with crashes and constant pressure, but Patrick remained composed, capitalizing on every opportunity that appeared. The result resonated because it showed not just speed, but control, the ability to carry expectation and tension without unraveling. Then came 2008, the year that would forever define her career. On April 20th, at the Indy Japan 300, she finally broke through. Patrick led the final 25 laps at Twin Ring Motegi, holding off Helio Castroneves and Scott Dixon with precision and patience. The victory was built long before the closing laps, shaped by a fuel-saving strategy that allowed her to strike when others could not. When she crossed the finish line, emotion flooded in immediately. She understood what the moment meant, not just for her, but for the sport itself. It remains the first and only IndyCar Series win by a woman, a singular achievement that still stands untouched. The win sent shockwaves through motorsports and turned her into a lasting symbol of what perseverance could achieve under relentless scrutiny. That same season, she carried that momentum throughout the championship, finishing 6th overall with 379 points across 17 races. There was a sharpness to her driving that year, a sense of intent that drew closer attention from fans and rivals alike. Critics tried to diminish the magnitude of her win, arguing that her lighter weight offered a competitive advantage. The Indy Racing League president publicly dismissed those claims, stating the effect was minimal. In truth, the debate barely mattered. Her results spoke clearly: 5 top 5 finishes, strong performances at tracks like Homestead and St. Petersburg, and the unmistakable feeling that she had reached territory no woman had occupied before. The following year brought a different kind of challenge. At Iowa Speedway, she finished 3rd in the Iowa Corn Indy 250. Instead of celebration, the paddock filled with quiet resentment. Rumors circulated that Andretti Green Racing favored her, that she received superior setups and additional support because sponsors valued her visibility. The tension spilled into interviews and team radio chatter, creating an undercurrent that never fully faded. She finished the season 5th overall with 393 points, earning 2 third-place finishes at Iowa and Kentucky, yet the narrative surrounding her success refused to shift. The question was no longer whether she had speed. It became whether that speed was earned or granted. In 2009, the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona returned with heavier expectations. Patrick joined a number 2 Daytona prototype for Childress Howard Motorsports, but optimism quickly turned into frustration. Mechanical failures struck repeatedly, and after just 143 laps, the car was forced out of the race. The result, a DNF and a 46th place finish, cut deeply, especially after her 8th place effort in 2007. Endurance racing offered no mercy, and that day served as another reminder of how quickly promise could dissolve into disappointment. Her 2010 IndyCar season showed that she still possessed front-running pace. She finished 10th overall with 367 points, but it was Texas and Homestead that revealed the full picture. At Texas, she led 22 laps and finished second behind Scott Dixon after a hard-fought run. At Homestead, she finished second again, this time behind Ryan Briscoe. Those performances became defining moments, part of a career that now included 7 podium finishes. She did not win that year, but her consistency confirmed she still belonged at the front. Even so, something had shifted. Her focus was beginning to drift toward NASCAR, and those around her could sense it. By 2011, the weight of transition, loss, and uncertainty pressed in. She finished 10th in the standings with 314 points across 16 races, but the season ended under a shadow. The final race at Las Vegas was halted by a massive 15-car crash that claimed the life of Dan Weldon. Patrick had been running mid-pack when it happened, and the impact of the tragedy lingered long after the track fell silent. She later spoke about how deeply it affected her, changing how the sport felt from that point forward. That same year, she stepped into the NASCAR Nationwide Series, finishing 26th at Kansas in her debut. Critics were quick to respond, warning that the transition would overwhelm her. They argued that stock car racing demanded instincts forged over a lifetime, instincts she did not yet possess. Her season became a collision of grief and reinvention, split between the closing chapter of her IndyCar career and the opening pages of a world she was still learning to navigate. As tensions grew between her and Andretti Green Racing, contract disputes and mounting frustration accelerated her pull toward NASCAR. The decision was controversial. Team owners and analysts openly questioned it, insisting she faced a climb too steep to conquer. Some believed she would never catch up to drivers raised entirely within stock car culture. Despite the warnings she signed on, the move was calculated, risky, and definitive. It showed she was willing to leave behind the environment that had shaped her, even if it meant starting over under harsher scrutiny. Her NASCAR journey had actually begun earlier than many remembered. In 2010, she entered the Nationwide Series with JR Motorsports, competing in 13 races behind the wheel of the number 7 Chevrolet. Her debut at Daytona on February 13th ended abruptly with a crash on lap 15. She finished 35th and earned 58 points. Her best result that season was 19th at Homestead. She ended the year 43rd in the standings with 1,321 points, crashing out of 4 of her first 5 starts and finishing only 3 races on the lead lap. She also tested herself in ARCA and the K&N Series, finishing 85th and 45th, respectively. The learning curve was unforgiving and highly visible. Every mistake became a headline because of who she was. Yet even as results lagged, her presence dominated conversation. The bright green GoDaddy car became one of the most recognizable images in NASCAR. In 2011, she ran 12 nationwide races and finished 26th in the point standings with 3,021 points. The results were uneven, but the transition was fully underway, setting the stage for the most challenging chapter of her career. Her strongest results that season came at Daytona, where she finished 14th, and at Phoenix, where she crossed the line in 12th. What stunned many observers was not just where she finished, but how she managed to do it. At the same time, she was still committed to a full 17-race IndyCar schedule. No other rookie was attempting anything close to that workload. The physical and mental grind was relentless, and it showed. Her average finish in NASCAR hovered around 28th, and scheduling conflicts forced her to miss key events at Darlington, Pocono, and Dover. The calendar alone worked against her. Then came Las Vegas. Against the backdrop of skepticism and exhaustion, Patrick delivered a 4th-place finish that cut through the noise. With that result, she broke Sarah Christian's 62-year-old record for the highest finish by a woman in a national NASCAR event. The moment mattered because of what it represented. It wasn't just a statistic, it was proof that she could push through a level of pressure and logistical strain that most drivers never had to confront. That finish became a turning point, reinforcing the idea that her ceiling had not yet been reached. By 2012, she committed fully to the NASCAR Nationwide Series. She made 33 starts and finished the season 10th in the final standings with 838 points, the highest points finish ever recorded by a woman in the series. Along the way, she earned 2 top 10 finishes, running 8th at Texas and 9th at Bristol, and even captured a pole position. The year was far from clean. Crashes marked both Daytona races, and a hard hit from Jacques Villeneuve at Kansas added to the physical toll. Critics continued to dismiss her as a marketing hire rather than a competitor. But the standings told a different story. Patrick herself admitted the season was frustrating, yet she also acknowledged that it accelerated her growth, sharpening her instincts and preparing her for the Cup Series. That same year, she made her NASCAR Cup Series debut. Driving the number 10 Chevrolet for Stewart-Haas Racing, she entered 10 races and finished 62nd in the standings, with an average finish near 30th. Her standout performance came at Talladega, where she finished 10th and became the first woman to lead laps in a Cup Series race. The criticism didn't fade, but her introduction to the series laid the groundwork for her first full-time Cup campaign in 2013. By 2015, she had surpassed Janet Guthrie's long-standing record for the most top 10 finishes by a woman in NASCAR, reaching a total of 21 compared to Guthrie's 11. Even that milestone failed to quiet the doubts. Some insisted her opportunities existed only because of sponsorship appeal. Others labeled her difficult or attention-seeking. Patrick spoke openly about how the criticism followed her everywhere, and how her achievements were often overshadowed by discussions of her image rather than her performance. Still, she stayed in the car, continuing to occupy space in a sport that had excluded women for generations. Then, in February 2013, everything escalated. On February 17th, Danica Patrick became the first woman to win the pole position for the Daytona 500. The qualifying lap clocked in at 196.434 miles per hour, covering the 2.5-mile track in just 45.81 seconds. More than 10 million viewers tuned in, aware they were watching history unfold. She led the opening lap of the race and finished 8th, the best Daytona 500 result ever achieved by a woman. Her pole speed remains the fastest single-car Daytona 500 pole speed recorded in the last 30 years. It was a moment that stood apart, both statistically and symbolically. But racing never allows moments to exist without consequence. In 2016, at Talladega, the sport showed its most dangerous side. With 8 laps remaining, Patrick was hit from behind by Michael McDowell, sending her car spinning before it slammed into the wall at nearly full speed. The impact ignited flames inside the cockpit. She later described feeling the air rush out of her body and fearing her hair was on fire. Her chest, arm, and foot were badly bruised, and she underwent x-rays afterward. No major injuries were found, but she called it the worst crash of her career. The wreck was a stark reminder of the risks she had accepted for years, and of the fearlessness required to keep coming back. As time passed, Patrick began speaking more candidly about the mental cost of her career. She said the pressure and scrutiny made her feel decades behind drivers who had grown up entirely within stock car racing. The 36-race Cup schedule drained her, 9 months on the road, with only 2 or 3 weekends off. She compared it to the slower rhythm of IndyCar, and said NASCAR demanded everything she had. Gradually, the constant negativity and unrelenting expectations wore her down. By 2018, she stepped away, not because she lacked ability, but because the joy had disappeared. She admitted that racing was often miserable, and somewhere along the way, her happiness had faded. Her honesty revealed a side of the sport rarely discussed, the emotional weight that exists beyond trophies and headlines. After 2015, her story followed a slow, visible decline. Her Cup Series performance slipped each season. In 2016, she finished 24th with 689 points. In 2017, she fell to 28th with just over 500 points across 36 races. Week after week grew heavier. Her average finish remained stuck around 23rd. She recorded only one top 10 result and suffered 11 DNFs. The results pushed her deeper into the field and fueled quiet conversations in the garage. By late 2017, those whispers became unavoidable. A split from Stewart-Haas Racing seemed inevitable. Despite her groundbreaking success in IndyCar, she could no longer keep pace in NASCAR. Race after race, frustration mounted until the end felt unavoidable. That sense of finality followed her into 2018. She wanted one last chance at the Daytona 500, one final moment to close the chapter on her own terms. Instead, on lap 101, she was caught in a multi-car crash triggered by Chase Elliott. She finished 35th and climbed out of the wreck knowing the ending she had imagined would not come. The crash also collected Kevin Harvick and Casey Kane, underscoring how quickly everything can unravel. A few months later, she returned to IndyCar one last time, hoping for closure at the Indianapolis 500 with Ed Carpenter Racing. Driving the number 13 car, she aimed to leave the sport where her legacy had first been cemented. But once again, racing had other plans. An engine failure ended her day early, and she finished 33rd. 2 final races. 2 abrupt endings. It was a harsh reminder that motorsport offers no guarantees, not even to those who change it forever. Yet the danger that shaped her career had always been present. Years earlier, in Japan in 2005 during her rookie IndyCar season, everything had nearly collapsed before it truly began, when toxic exhaust fumes filled her cockpit, exposing her to risks that could not be seen, only felt. Immediately after the race, something felt wrong. Her body no longer responded the way it should have. Breathing became shallow and strained. A tightness locked into her chest, unfamiliar and frightening. Track medical staff rushed her to the medical center, and from there she was taken to a hospital. Doctors identified symptoms consistent with carbon monoxide poisoning. When she regained full awareness, she was shaken, disoriented, and overwhelmed by a single thought: how close she had come to losing everything. That moment never truly left her. It lingered quietly in the background of every race that followed, a reminder that even survival in motorsports is never guaranteed. As her NASCAR career approached its final chapter, she tried to hold her ground. Her last Cup Series start came in 2018, driving the number 7 car for Premium Motorsports. From the outset, the car struggled to keep pace, and she finished 43rd. For critics, it became another opportunity to resurrect an old argument that even after 312 Cup starts, she had been more hype than substance. The debate resurfaced immediately. Some continued to see a trailblazer who reshaped the sport. Others saw a driver who never translated visibility into consistent victories. Patrick stood between those extremes, absorbing the weight of a career that shattered barriers yet never fully escaped scrutiny. By the age of 36, the toll was unmistakable. Years of violent crashes, relentless pressure, and constant expectations had settled deep into both her body and her mind. She admitted openly that she felt shaken, depleted, and ready to step away. Retirement came later in 2018, and with it, a transition into media and broadcasting. Some praised her candor. Others questioned whether she had walked away too soon. But she understood the burden she had been carrying and chose something unfamiliar after decades of competition: peace. Away from the track, her personal life carried its own instability. She married physical therapist Paul Hospenthal in 2005, 7 years after meeting him while recovering from a racing injury at age 21. Their marriage included a prenuptial agreement built on clarity and structure. In November 2012, just one day after she was named the most popular driver in the nationwide series, she announced their divorce. She described the marriage as irretrievably broken. Court filings noted no violence and no children. The divorce was finalized in April 2013. She offered no public details, allowing the moment to pass without explanation and continuing forward without pause. Not long after, she began a relationship with fellow NASCAR driver Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Their relationship began privately in 2012 and became public in March 2013. They raced together, competed against one another, and spent 5 years navigating life under constant visibility. The relationship blended public optimism with private uncertainty. On April Fool's Day in 2017, they jokingly suggested they were engaged. Later, Patrick admitted the humor masked a deeper divide. She was ready for commitment, and he was not. By December 2017, the relationship ended. Rumors had already circulated when Stenhouse appeared alone at the NASCAR Cup Series Awards weeks earlier. The separation remained respectful, but its timing mirrored another ending unfolding at the same time: her racing career itself. Then came a relationship that would later reshape how she understood her own resilience. From 2018 to 2020, she was involved with NFL quarterback Aaron Rodgers. From the outside, it appeared calm and grounded. Years later, in 2025, she revealed the reality had been far different. She described the relationship as emotionally abusive and called it the most painful period of her life. She spoke of losing confidence, feeling diminished, and slowly slipping away from the person she recognized. The breakup was sudden and devastating. Recovery came through therapy, piece by piece. Rodgers never responded publicly, but her disclosure shocked many and exposed how deeply hidden pain can exist even in the most high-profile relationships. By 2025, her presence felt lighter. Holiday photos appeared from Burning Man. Nothing explicit, nothing confirmed, just quiet images suggesting a shift. Fans speculated about someone new in her life. She neither confirmed nor denied it. What stood out was the change in her energy. After years of emotional turbulence, she appeared to be entering a calmer chapter. Her health journey added another layer of hardship. In 2014, she underwent breast augmentation, hoping it would improve her confidence after years in racing. Instead, her health began to deteriorate. By 2018, her body felt unfamiliar. She gained 25 pounds. Her hair thinned. Exhaustion became constant. Her menstrual cycle turned irregular. She moved from specialist to specialist, searching for answers. Tests revealed heavy metal toxicity and thyroid dysfunction, but no diagnosis explained everything. At one point, she was taking up to 30 pills a day. She tried gut healing protocols and every recommended treatment. Nothing worked. For 4 years, her condition worsened. Then in 2022, after extensive testing, she received a diagnosis that finally connected the dots: breast implant illness. Her immune system had been fighting the implants continuously, creating widespread inflammation. It wasn't one illness, but many symptoms caused by a single source. In March 2022, she chose to have the implants removed. The change was immediate. Within hours, her breathing eased. Her face appeared healthier. Her skin tone brightened. Over the following weeks, her hair began to regrow, her weight stabilized, and her cycles normalized. She described feeling clearer than she had in years. She now rates her well-being at 6 out of 10, but compared to where she had been, it felt extraordinary. She began sharing her experience publicly so other women would trust their instincts when something feels wrong. Before the explant surgery, her symptoms were so severe she often felt as though she were battling something life-threatening. Joint pain, brain fog, dizziness, adrenal fatigue, leaky gut, weakness. Many days felt like emergencies waiting to happen. Those sensations reminded her of the terrifying day in 2005 when exhaust fumes poisoned her during her rookie IndyCar season. That memory helped her understand just how deeply the implants had affected her system. Her experience highlighted how confusing breast implant illness can be, often masquerading as countless other conditions. More challenges followed. In December 2024, she was burned by scalding hot water at a Starbucks. She shared images online showing blistered, peeling skin along her thigh. The pain was intense and unrelenting. She documented the recovery process, posting updates through days of bandages and discomfort. Her openness sparked conversations about everyday safety and how quickly ordinary situations can become dangerous. Around that same period, she visited Dr. Daniel Amen's clinic for a brain scan. She wanted to understand whether years of racing had left lasting damage. The scans revealed signs of trauma, evidence of how the brain moves inside the skull during high-impact crashes, even with helmets. The images stunned her. They offered explanations for the memory lapses and moments of mental fog she had experienced. Since then, she has spoken openly about brain health, working to help other athletes understand the long-term effects of repeated impact. Danica Patrick's story does not end with trophies or records alone. It carries the unseen costs, the physical damage, emotional strain, and silent battles that followed her long after the engine stopped.